Hi, everyone. Welcome to Griffeye's first live webinar of the year. We are going to cover the top 10 features, the features I could not live without in Analyze DI. And although this tool is widely used when investigating crimes against children, the technology can be applied towards any case, any crime involving pictures and videos. Joining me today is Tristan Oliver. Tristan is Griffeye's law enforcement liaison in the UK, where he served for 30 years as a police officer with Dorset Police. Over half of his career was as a computer forensic expert, and with the last 6 years focused on high-risk child abuse and exploitation cases. Tristan will be moderating the Q&A section in Teams, so feel free to drop your questions or comments anytime during our webinar. Tristan will either answer your questions or hold it to the end for our closing discussion. To cover all my favorite features, I may move through the tool quickly, but please know that a recording of this webinar will be available for you on demand in our user portal. We also offer in-depth training online and in person to walk you through step-by-step on how to fully take advantage of the technology in Griffeye software. Not only is this our first live webinar, but it's also my first one as Griffeye's new Global Training Manager, a great opportunity that I'm super pumped about. If you contact training@griffeye.com, 99.99% of the time, it's going to be me who replies to you. So I thought I'd just take some time to let you know a little bit about the person behind those training emails, because I would like you to leave this webinar with the comfort level of reaching out to me if you ever have a question or if you need anything from the training team here at Griffeye. So let's begin. I think my story is very much like most law enforcement. I did not have a background in computers and technology. And if you're wondering, yes, these are pictures of printed photographs, because back then everything was captured on 35mm film. True story. After patrol, I did what a lot of crazy 20-somethings do. I went and had fun in vice and narcotics. And then 10 years ago, I started investigating crimes against children, where I was assigned until I officially retired just last month. As you can see in the photo, we didn't have a lot 10 years ago. My partner and I sat on the ends of one desk, and File Explorer and VLC Player were my main tools, and I was opening up pictures and videos one at a time. And these were my case notes from my very first case, where I counted how much CSAM, or child sexual abuse material, was on optical discs and wrote the numbers down on paper. And it was awful. I felt like I was drowning. And I'm telling you all this because I know firsthand what it's like to not have the right tools and what a difference this software did for me, for my cases, and for the victims we were able to help over the years. I know this tool, I believe in it, and I know that in the current situation today, it's very rare to not have a case that doesn't involve the internet or a digital device in some way. And when you combine the crazy amounts of pictures and videos captured and stored on digital devices with along with subscriber data that you may have seized from Google, Apple, Dropbox, or Mega accounts, for example, it's really easy to start feeling like you're drowning again. And it's these media files, though, that we need to look at, where you'll often find leads and critical evidence for your cases. And this is where Griffeye Analyze can help. And I'm going to cover what I found most helpful to get through my cases efficiently. Instead of a countdown, I'm going to count up with one of the last features tying everything together beautifully in the end. So number 1 is visually similar searching. It was a feature I used on every single case. Analyze can search for and identify files that are related in some way, such as sharing the same setting, patterns, textures, or colors, and it's a great way to find files that are part of a series. So let's see what this looks like in the tool. Let's say I come across this file in my case. It's two females on a bridge, and I need to find more evidence of them in order to make a victim identification or determination on who they are, their identities. So if I hit the Enter key in this tool, it's going to run a visually similar search on this picture. And you can see here that it was able to find additional files of the two females on the bridge. And you may also notice that there are some false positives, hits that shouldn't be there. And that's normal. With visually similar searching, you're not finding visually matching copies like you would see with Microsoft Photo DNA. But this is a way to find files that are similar in some way. With this picture here, you've got some green and browns that mimic the greens and browns that you see in the background of this photo. At this point, I can do a subsequent search of my results or using my results. So I'm going to work off this picture and still try to get more evidence related to these females. So I'm going to hit the Enter key. And now I have additional files. This one I haven't seen before, but if you notice, not only is there no bridge in this picture, but this female is not wearing sunglasses like she is in all of the other files. So now I have even more evidence or leads to help identify who she is. You can find files connected to each other quickly using visually similar searching. And as you can see here, I now have more to go on as far as identifying them. You can also use external imagery or external files in your evidence, in your case, to compare with using visually similar searching. So for example, if I had a stalking victim in this case, and I knew the victim had a white car that was involved, I can run a similarity search within the tool. And I'm going to add in a picture that I gathered of my victim's white car. And I'm going to point the tool at this car. So this car is not part of my evidence. It's not part of the data I imaged and imported and processed from seized devices or the cloud data that I received from search warrant returns. This is external intelligence that I gathered in my investigation. So I'm going to point the tool to this white car and process it to see if any similar files exist in my evidence. So I've run visually similar searching on that car, and the tool is now going to point me to similar files within my evidence of that white vehicle. And as I go down here, you can see that it's found files that have a better picture of the license plate for that vehicle. It's at different angles, but this is clearly all part of the same series, possibly the same stalking incident of my victim. It's very easy to find connected files using this. Let's try another example. Let's say that this file is an indecent image provided within and reported within a cyber tip that I'm now investigating. And so now I would like to see if this file exists in my evidence in some way. So I'm going to hit the Enter key, which is the keyboard shortcut for my favorite feature, visually similar searching. Going to push me out to the search window. And you can see here now that I have a lesser quality thumbnail of that same file. And if I scroll or mouse over this video, I'll see that I have that same person featured within some of the frames in this video. So this technology also works in trying to make matches or similar comparisons to the frames extracted from videos. And we'll talk more about videos later in this webinar. You can also focus the tool on a specific area within your evidence file, your picture or video. So If I am interested in this person's arm and tattoos, all those symbols, and I want to find additional files that may be related or matching those symbols or his exact arm, I can actually have the tool focus in on that. So if I go here to similar images in file view, I'm now going to draw a box around his arm and all those unique symbols. And it's going to push me out to the search window where I'm going to see the results of that type of coloring, that type of color dispersion on his arm at different angles. And now I have more files related to that gentleman. So this can be really great when trying to locate similar symbols, watermarks, logos on photo. It has been really good for me for unique bedspreads that I've used in cases. So I'm going to show you some of the cases where I found this technology really helpful. So this was a case I had at JSO, or Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, where I worked, and we served a search warrant on Kik, and they returned some subscriber data and content for a person of interest in our investigation. And in these files, I noted this person's hand and a unique tattoo here, some beading or a beaded necklace around his wrist, a woven rug, some flooring here. I noticed this unique children's rug with child exploitive views of the children that were lying on these rugs. And so this is where we began our case. We identified the offender and served a search warrant at his home. And these are photos I took at the crime scene. And I took a lot of different angles of his tattoos. And he always wore this beaded bracelet, which proved to be very helpful in finding additional files of his hand. And so I took a ton of photos of that bracelet. I also not only seized this rug, but I took a lot of photos of it and also the flooring as well. All of this I brought back to the lab, and when I brought also his devices and all of his cloud data that we seized for examination, I used this external intelligence, these crime scene photos, with the tools visually similar searching to find more files on his devices involving this tattooed arm, the bracelet, the rug, and the floor. It was really great and it was really simple. It turned out that our offender was an elementary school teacher, and these are the photos I took of the rug in his classroom. I used Analyze to process these rug photos, and it led me to more child exploitive files that he captured of his students that were laying on this rug. These are crime scene photos we took in other cases, and we processed them with Analyze, which then found CSAM involving those bedspreads you see here. They were very unique in pattern and color, and so it was pretty easy for the tool to find additional files. Visually similar searching found indecent imagery that was captured in this garage and workshop area that you see here. The bathtub and tiled wall here led to finding sexual abuse files captured in the setting. Now, none of these crime scene photographs I've shown you have had any people in them, but I was able to use the tool to find the crimes that were captured in those settings through the use of visually similar searching. Again, one of my top faves. And now on to number 2. Analyze has AI built in to detect, track, and connect faces in our evidence. And this allowed me to search very quickly for the specific faces I wanted to find. And I used it in every case as well. So let me show you what that looks like in the tool. Going back to our search window, I would often take the suspect's booking photo or ID picture and look for files involving him or her using that external intelligence. So I can have this tool run a similar face search on that external intelligence. So here is my suspect. And let's say this is his arrest and booking photo that I'm now going to point the tool at. It's not part of my evidence, but I'm going to use it to look for files in the digital devices we seized and the cloud data as well. And now the tool has found his face in an ID card, a passport, a different facial hair here, a different angle in both of these pictures. This is also him with his hair shaved. It found his face in a video, which is fantastic. Saved me from watching that video myself. And then also his face with wearing a hat. And then as you scroll down, you see some false positives. Again, this is normal. AI is never going to be perfect, and it's never going to replace you as the investigator. A human still needs to review all the results and make the final decision. Let's try this scenario with a victim's photo. So I'm going to make sure I'm on similar faces and add in a photo of a victim. I could have obtained this from her public social media profile that I found online, or maybe a family member or a friend of hers had given me this photo to use. Whatever intelligence you or your colleague working on the case has lawfully gathered for the investigation, you should use that. If you know what your suspects and victims look like, you can start searching for their faces early on. So I'm going to run a similar face search on her face, and it's going to find additional files with her face. While I was at residential search warrants, I would always use my agency camera to take pictures of any persons of interest at the suspect's house, whether it be the children pictured on the fridge or in framed portraits on the wall. I would always be lurking. I would always lurk on their publicly available social media posts, just whatever I could get a hold of to use to my advantage for the case in a lawful manner. My absolute favorite when handling cases or attacking them would be to find the files that proved ownership of the device. So I would use face detection a lot to find those gross bathroom selfies of the suspect holding the exact phone that I was examining at my office. So that to me was pure gold for the case. Facial analysis also includes age and gender classification. Analyze identifies and flags for you faces that it feels are likely to be under the age of 12, which really helps get you to relevant evidence if you're working a crimes against children case. Now, as you can see here, it did a really good job. Again, some false positives, but this is much faster at finding files of children than I would have been if I went through the evidence one at a time. So it's a great guide, and this facial recognition technology, it's built right into the tool, and it works on your evidence and any external intelligence that you've gathered for the case. You do not have to be connected to the internet, and you will not be accessing any databases online that you don't have control over. In fact, all of the features I'm covering today can run on an air-gapped machine, and your capabilities are not at all limited if you are offline, off the grid. Moving on to number 3. The tool has a database that stores information about known files, such as whether it was classified as ignorable or objectionable material, if it was part of a series, distributed. This is not only the greatest influence in reducing your workload for a case, but it also helps you identify and safeguard victims faster. So this screenshot is of numbers that were from a case I worked on back in November. My offender had 2 computers, 2 cell phones, 1 tablet, and some external hard drives and thumb drives as well. And when I first brought in all the pictures and videos from these devices, the tool found almost 1.7 million pictures and videos, which was about the average that I would see in each case. But the tool deduplicated the files so that I only had to review them once instead of the many instances they existed on his multiple devices, which is very common now because of cloud-based file syncing and the ability to sync all your data across all of your devices. With deduplication, the tool reduced my workload down to about 1/3 of that original total number of files. But then the Griffeye intelligence database kicks in to identify the known material. Not only these 3 US child exploitive, child sexual abuse categories you see here, but also the ignorable files, the junk like operating system graphics or Hollywood movies or any other noise that we want to cut out. Setting this aside, this known material up front in the beginning further reduced my workload by allowing me to focus on the uncategorized, unknown material here. And it's in this group is where the new victims are going to be found, in the new, never before seen material that's created by the suspect. So think about all the time that I saved here in this case. When I first loaded the tool, the evidence in the tool, it took and identified 1.7 million pictures and videos, processed them, and then left me to focus my efforts on 335,000 files, which might still sound like a lot to you, but I could knock that out in a day using the tool's AI, searching, and filtering capabilities. So this was my GID setup at my agency. I had 5 different intelligence sources within my GID. The NIST NSRL set is a valuable collection of ignorable media files. And if you're not using this already, it's free and available for you to download, and I highly recommend it to knock out that noise. Project Vic US hash set of ignorable and child notable files was also within my GID. I had my own case intelligence that I saved after every case. And then my old legacy hash set that was passed down to me from my predecessors at my unit at JSO. And then the initial Project Vic setup hash set. We also used a shared GID at my agency. And what that means, it was one centralized GID shared by the 10 examiners and investigators at our office. And each one of us saved our own case intelligence to the shared GID, which then saved the rest of the team from having to look at the same material in the future. And this instantly made all of us faster together instead of alone. Now on to number 4. For me, reviewing videos was always the worst, especially when having to listen to the audio. But Analyze made my review more efficient. It creates a collage of extracted frames so that you can get an overview of the content of what's happening within the video. And you can click over or mouse over the thumbnail to review the file really quickly. And you can also filter down to different criteria such as motion, scenes, faces, audio levels, and nudity. So let's see what this looks like in the tool. I am going to filter down to video files. You already saw some video files earlier, but with these, with the frame extraction and these collages and these thumbnails, I can mouse over them. And I am watching about 15 video files very quickly in a matter of seconds, which is fantastic. No lag or waiting for the files or videos to load up in VLC player like it did in my old days when I would scrub through each video one at a time. If you need a closer look at what's happening in video, for example, in here, a lot's going on, so let's check it out. We have a video chart that will show you a better overview of that collage, all the frames that were, or a framed collage that was extracted. And this is really great, especially for long video chat recordings, like the videos I would get a lot in my cases from the Omegle chat platform, where it might take some time. You need to take a closer look to see if the content actually rises to the level of what's chargeable in your area. So I really like the video chart for that. You can also do some great filtering in a video. So I'm going to use this one, the Iraq Daily Show, a talk show episode that has a lot going on as well. But I'm going to go now into the video player. You can see here I've got a nice detailed timeline view, but I have the ability to filter or search for additional things that you can find here, such as motion, nudity, sound, and faces. Now, this is a talk show episode, so there's going to be a lot of faces. So let's say I want to filter down to only specific faces. So I'm going to click on with faces. And I'm going to select of this list. And you can see some false positives. But I'm going to select the last two here, this female, as well as the older gentleman that you see here. So I only want to see the parts of this video that contain those two faces. You can see here on the timeline view that a lot of it was grayed out, and that's because it did not meet the criteria that I just set. So in order to view what I wanted to see, the two faces only, I'm going to just change the playback to 8 times and then play that segment for us. So here we go, and I'm just looking at the parts of the video. It took only a matter of seconds instead of the full 5 minutes to try to find them, and it just played for me very quickly. So I can save a lot of time using filtering within video. You can also have the tool focus on specific areas of a video. So I'm going to choose this surveillance footage of a parking garage. Press pause. So a lot's happening in this. And if I was only interested in perhaps things that change in this specific area, instead of anything happening up here or to the left, I can actually focus motion within this area here. Now the tool has already calculated motion levels for the entire video, but now I'm going to just focus on that specific face. So I'm going to detect motion in that area and draw the area that I'm interested in. So I'm drawing over there. And so an example of where this might be helpful, if you have a series of auto burglaries, for example, and it's a huge parking lot and and it's happened over a long period of time, you have weeks of surveillance footage and you want to focus only on the small affected corner within that enormous parking lot, the corner where all the burglaries happen. So you can have that tool focus its efforts only on that, only show you motion changes within that area. And so now this is a 32-minute video, and now that it's done, I'm going to tell it to only show me parts of the video with motion based on where I was interested in. And you can already see it's going to eliminate a lot of footage for me. And then I'm going to press play. And you can see here that whenever anything changes, there was a man that walked in, lights changed around that area. Things drove in front of the space. I have people walking, people that moving away, and I could certainly make this much slower if I wanted to, but just for this demonstration, I just like to play it a little fast, and I'm done. This is a 32-minute video, and I saw all the parts that had motion within this area. You can save so much time when using this tool, especially for videos. Number 5. The Griffeye Brain is the tool's CSAM classifier, the child sexual abuse classifier. It flags files likely to be CSAM. And here in the screenshot, you can see that the brain will score unknown files and place them in one of these 3 groups based on the level of probability. So high is 95 to 90% probable it's CSAM. Low is 1 to 5%, and uncertain is everything in between. So for my workflow, as soon as my tool was done importing and processing the evidence I verified what was pre-identified as illegal material, and then I would jump straight to the CSA high filter to look at what was flagged in the uncategorized group as high. Because remember, your new victims are going to be in that uncategorized, never before seen group of files. I can't truly show you the power of this AI as a CSAM classifier with just our training material, but I saw great results when I used this for child exploitation investigations. It really guided me quickly to finding that first generation material. On to number 6. The Griffeye brain is also involved with object detection and recognition, and the tool can flag objects found in images so that you can find items that might mean something for your case more quickly. So here it is. You'll find it bookmark various objects, and there's so much in here that has the ability to detect and identify. So you can look for animals, buildings, different types of clothing, equipment, which under equipment, you can find electronic equipment, which is great for those ownership files that I always like to look for. But let's say you've got a convicted felon and you're looking for weapons charges against him. You can have the tool search for weapons. And I'm going to remove the video filter, go back to thumbnail view to show you the results. And here now we see that the file has found pictures of firearms. Now, whether you think this paint roller or consider this airship a weapon, it really depends on how it's used, right? But you can see it actually did great at finding firearms in the other files. So back in my narcotics days, I would have loved this for all the weed grow investigations I used to have to do. So in here, I could filter down to plant, but if I know that my suspect had an iPhone 12 Pro, I can then combine another filter and filter down to the files that contain plants that were on the iPhone 12 Pro. And here we go. Now we have some files of this very evil looking suspect in a weed grow. So that would have been very helpful back in the day for me. But as you can see, combining filters, whatever it may be, is really easy in this tool. If you know what you are looking for, filter down to it, and I'll get more into that later. All right, so in one of my cases, the child victim said that her uncle only sexually abused her in his car, and that's where he took all the pictures and videos of the abuse. If I didn't have a photo or any good intelligence about the car used by the uncle, maybe he just borrowed a girlfriend's and we don't know who she is or and the child's not able to really describe what I'm looking for. I can try to filter down my seized data down to vehicle pictures. So if I go down to vehicle and just try to look at all the ones involving a car, the tool then has now filtered down to files showing the exterior of vehicles, as well as interior shots from within cars. And it does a really great job at just kind of guiding me in the investigation. Again, it'll still require me to look at the results because I'll still see some false positives like that, but very helpful for an investigation. All right, moving on. Number 7. Analyze can show you all the available EXIF, some really important ones, such as when the camera created or captured that file, the camera serial number, make, model, and perhaps any available GPS that might exist in the file. So the tool can map any file that has the latitude and longitude coordinates embedded in the file. You can zoom in all the way to street level on an internet-connected workstation. But like I said, you can do any of these features on an air-gapped machine using an offline map that's available within the tool and also customizable. So here in this tool, I'm using an offline map instead of being online. And if I wanted to perhaps, let me remove a filter here, perhaps focus on a file captured in France. So I'm going to select this one. I have two options here on an offline machine. I can go to GPS functions and export that data as a KML file for that file that was captured in France, and then save it to a thumb drive, and then bring that thumb drive over to my internet connected undercover machine, and then load it in and see it plotted on Google Earth. KML files can be used in Google Earth, but if I am on an internet connected machine, it's so easy to just use the built-in integration with Google Maps, to which when I choose that, it's going to push me out to my default web browser. And now I could see where that file in France was taken. It was Paris. Here's the actual address or location. I could even zoom in. Maybe it'll be a hotel or a house, but it looks like somewhere near this corner. So really great at location information. I'm in Florida, Northeast Florida, and I would always just zoom in on map view just to see what files were captured in my jurisdiction or near the area of my offender's house. Very easy to filter files down in this tool as well to regions. So with reverse geocoding, it has a special panel where you can filter into anything of interest of here that was determined from the available GPS coordinates and files. Very easy in the EXIF filters panel to narrow down to whatever make or model or serial number of devices that were seized at your offenders' homes. Really great at, identifying that first generation material. Next up, number 8. My favorite, one of my absolute favorites, filters. If you know what's important, go straight to it. If it's a time frame, a camera serial number, a location, the tool has so many wonderful filters to get you there directly. And you just need to tell it what is important for your case. And Analyze makes it really easy in the tool. With the quick filters panel, you've got EXIF filters that I've already talked about, some file property filters, intelligence, apps, and then with the Star tab, I've saved all my favorite ones here, which is very easy to do. If you start learning what is important to you, you can right click and then star it, and it's always available in your favorites tab. So you can also filter down not only using this filters panel, but in the best view, grid view, you can combine filters very easily. So this view has all the metadata about the files in your evidence. It's very much like an Excel spreadsheet. So if I hover over the column headers here, you'll see that a little filter icon appears in the top right corner. So if I'm interested, if I click on that, interested in only illegal and borderline files, so I've narrowed down two classifications of illegal and borderline, and I only want to see it in certain evidence. I want to see it in the HP laptop and my Galaxy S22. I've now enabled 4 different filters, and now I'm filtered down to all of these. What's nice in the tool is if you start using certain filters a lot, there's a way to not only create custom filters, but you can load them every time in the tool. And you can see here when I click on load, I've already saved some 2 filters. Illegal accessible files with relevant EXIF, and I made another one called high resolution with GPS. I merely, in a new case, just have to click this and it'll automatically apply all those complex filters to my data. Speaking of illegal or accessible files, rather, that is actually one of my new favorite filters. When it's enabled, you'll find it under Intelligence. So under the Intelligence tab, you see the first option is accessible by suspect or inaccessible by suspect. This separates files that are exactly that, accessible or inaccessible. And I'll talk more about what that means or what qualifies as inaccessible. But I want to make sure while I'm on this that you don't confuse it with under the File tab, there is a viewable filter, viewable and not viewable. That relates to something in totally different. This refers to whether the file can be opened or not, and often that's usually maybe related to an unsupported image file format, or it doesn't have an extension. So that is not what I'm talking about with inaccessible and accessible. Got some slides to just kind of explain some examples of inaccessible are unallocated files, orphan files, files located in page file, hybrid fill, swap file, and web cache are just a few of the examples. Considering where files were found or how they were saved to the device are super important, especially when you're working with your prosecutor and trying to select the specific pictures and videos with which to use to charge against your offender. And at my agency, we made all efforts to choose files that not only met the criteria for enhanced sentencing under Florida law, but we also tried to find those files that were in file paths that were least likely to be disputed in court. So for most organizational profiles, and by that I mean like when you set up the program, you choose a categorization schema or profile, such as United States Project Vic or Canada English, Canada French. But for most profiles in the current version of the tool that is out right now, this inaccessible accessible filter is disabled by default. The user manual actually gives great direction on how to enable it. However, with the next upcoming release, 23.1, the filter will be on by default in Analyze DI, and there's going to be a really great way right in the GUI to have user control on editing, enabling, disabling rules, and also manually overriding the results. So please look out for that. A lot of us are very excited about it because it definitely helps as far as selecting the files that you would want to choose for charging. Another filter that I want to make mention of, because I really don't think it gets enough love, and it really does, is file transparency. So if you go under the File tab under Filters, there is a filter called Has Transparency. So files with transparency are often logos and website graphics. So let me remove some of the other filters so you can see what that looks like. It's a really great way to eliminate ignorable files, depending on your investigation, but just make sure you are still reviewing the results of the filter and not missing something that might be important for you. So I've talked about the fabulous top 8 so far, and I've covered visually similar searching where you are connecting files related based on settings, colors, textures, things like that. Face detection and recognition, the Griffeye intelligence database, having those intelligence sources help eliminate known material up front, but also to help you focus in on the area where might be new victims that need to be identified and safeguarded. Also, the video utility pack and reviewing all those video files and filtering and searching within them. The CSAM classifier, object detection recognition, EXIF data, and filters as well. A lot of this can be or seem overwhelming for a new user of the tool or a new investigator in general. And that's where number 9 comes in to save the day. Number 9 is the workflow checklist. It's a built-in interactive checklist to guide a user on all the steps for a thorough investigation and where to carry out each of those actions in the tool. So you'll find that workflow checklist on the right-hand side in the right panel. So each of these, or most of these, are clickable, and it's going to push you out to the area within the tool to uh, complete that task. So for this, for example, if it's telling me, reminding me, search for any known camera, phone, tablet, any of those devices I've seized. So if I click on that, it's going to push me out to the exif filters so that I can accomplish that task, that item. When I'm done, I tick it off or I check, put the check mark, and then I move on. Here it says search potential scene photographs. If I do that, it's pushing me out to the search window where I can bring in that external intelligence, the crime scene photos, and run it against my evidence. Next one below that is locating media using CSA keywords. So this tool has a built-in keyword checklist related to child sexual abuse. This is completely customizable in Pro. You can change it if you're doing perhaps maybe a narcotics investigation or homicide or something gang related. But for now, it's built in with a CSA keyword list. It's this whole workflow checklist. It's so great at just keeping track of what you've done, what's left, and it guides you to the area of the tool where you can complete the next steps. And finally, but just as important, is number 10. So while at JSO, I saw a high rate of employee turnover for both CSAM investigators and digital forensic examiners that were dealing with heavy caseloads and massive amounts of media that they had to review. And there are a lot of features in Griffeye software to help safeguard users' well-being so that they can stay in their roles longer. Now, we've already talked about the top 4 here that help reduce workload and do a lot of the heavy lifting for us up front, saving us a lot of the mental challenge of looking at overwhelming numbers of media files. Number 5, sound in videos. It's muted by default. I still remember to this day the audio from the last video that I accidentally listened to. Now, since that instance, I did have to still listen to videos for court purposes and when I wrote affidavits, but when I had a choice, I always had the sound off. Number 6, the take a break timer reminds you to do just that, to take a break. A lot of times I would just be so focused on identifying a live victim in my case, I'd be at my desk, that I would forget to eat lunch. And this reminder to take a break, it's so simple, but it's really needed to stay healthy. The next 4, hide content, pixelate content, grayscale option, and masking parts of images. I'm going to show you what that looks like in the tool. So in thumbnail view, we can find a lot of, or 3 of those great wellness features: hide file content, pixelate, and grayscale. I'm going to start with hide file content. This is a really great way when you to use when you step away from your computer or when you have a colleague visit you at your desk. There's no reason to expose anyone else to harmful material if it's unnecessary. Pixelate illegal content. As you're grading material, reviewing your files, if you identify something like this one as illegal, so I'm going to mark it as category 1, and it instantly pixelates, which minimizes the further exposure I have to the files that I identify as illegal. Grayscale, the last one on this home tab, was based on a study that showed that viewing harmful content in grayscale had less of a negative impact on one's health than viewing those same files in color. And I 100% stand behind that study because I noticed a dramatic difference when I started using this feature. It lessened the intensity of what I was having to look at. You can also mask parts of images. So I'm going to work with this ugly fish photo here. So if I had to use this picture and it was illegal and I had to show it to a prosecutor or a witness or a victim, I could sanitize the part of the file that was harmful. So in here, we can find a drop down to pixelate image, and we have different options. I'm just going to pixelate a part of the image as high, so I can obscure some of the area, or we also have the image or paint with black as an option here. So I can just totally draw here. And I'm not manipulating the original evidence. This is just the copy of the file in the case. And then I can export this out and then show the sanitized copy to my witness or the prosecutor. A lot of great features all combined to help with user well-being. This is a lot of thought behind these features that it really speaks to Griffeye's commitment to help the investigators, help the digital forensic examiners, the people that have really tough jobs. So this is absolutely, although number 10 on this list is not at the bottom. I get asked a lot about what's missing in Core compared to Pro. So Core is the complementary version of Analyze DI Pro. It's still really great for the solo investigator who needs a simple way to look at pictures and videos without having, some advanced options like the advanced searching and filtering or the AI capabilities with faces, child sexual abuse, age, gender, or objects. So in Core, the GID, it is only one database on a single workstation. You can't share it. The workflow checklist is available, but you can't change it, customize it in any way. With EXIF, that's also available, but there's no native reverse geocoding. And with camera forensics, that would have to be an additional add-on if you want to use the camera forensics app. That comes along with the Pro license. Video analysis is still really great. You get the collage and you could do similar searching on frames, but you don't have the full utility pack of filtering or searching down by faces, motion, scenes, audio, and nudity. And it doesn't have any of these three AI capabilities with face, CSAM, or objects. Pro has all the features I showed you today, and it allows for GID intelligence to be shared with other Pro users, which was the setup we used at the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, where our group of 10 shared one GID, making each of us as strong as 10 people. So we're now going to open the webinar for a workflow discussion, any questions that you may have about the software. While some questions are perhaps being sent over, here's my contact information. Big shout out and many thanks to my wonderful host, my co-host, Tristan Oliver. If you are in the UK, make sure to jot down his details. He is such an excellent resource, especially with CS. I'm always bugging him to teach me more about that. And please don't hesitate to contact me as well. If you ever have a question or need anything from our training,